These aren't your normal store-bought sun-dried tomatoes. Today we're going to show you how to make rich, flavor-packed, oil-cured tomatoes safely at home. Seriously, these may become one of your favorite pantry staples after this video. Stick with us and we're going to show you how. Okay, so sun-dried tomatoes. A little secret from the industry is not many chefs enjoy sun-dried tomatoes, so we're here to change that today. Before we get going too deep into the weeds here on this today, for those of you returning that are our sous chefs, you'll notice that we're missing somebody today. So Xander man is back in school, and it's been a really good start so far, but it's been a lot of work. So today Xander has the much needed day off to rest and recuperate so we can keep pushing forward. However, in the meantime, tomatoes wait for nobody, and these ones need to be processed. So we're going to cure them up today. So we have them long into the fall and winter, when in our seasons that we don't get nice fresh ingredients. So oil-packed tomatoes, little bit different than a sun-dried tomato. Sun-dried tomato is basically what it sounds like. It is air dried to a point, taking away moisture from a tomato, so that way it's shelf stable. These tomatoes here, San Marzanos, that were grown in our garden, were picked by the kids just a couple of days ago, and we are at the tail end of our season upon filming here in our kitchen. So we want to make sure, now that we've got all the tomatoes processed that we need for pasta sauce and preserved tomatoes, we're going to try it a different way to cure it and pack it with salt, herbs, and oil. Make something delicious that's going to go well on sandwiches, chopped up in pastas, or turned into a spread for maybe a little charcuterie board later on. Again, they're San Marzano tomatoes. You'll see these kind of look like a Roma tomato, or just tomatoes that you find in your local markets. These are a bit of a different variety, an heirloom variety that has a lower moisture content, fewer seeds inside, and it's meant for canning and packing, turning into sauces. So that's why we're growing them. So I had the kids go out and pick the remaining ones before we pull out our garden. And we're going to do a small process inside, not using the sun. We're actually going to use our oven behind us, at pretty low temperature. We're going to season them up. Once we get them down to a specific moisture content or a level, then we're going to pack them into hot oil, get them jarred up and into the refrigerator or the freezer. We're going to take a quick moment to talk about a little bit of a safety concern when curing or packing anything in a jar that has a low acid content in oil. There are many risks to canning that we want to make sure that we avoid, and most of them are easily avoided by proper technique, making sure that your hands and your surfaces and your jars are completely clean, and that you're using the right amount of ingredients, time, temperature, and acid. We run the risk in a kitchen of causing some pretty nasty foodborne illnesses if we're not careful, but it's kind of a common sense thing. Obviously, keep everything clean and don't be silly, and everybody's going to be just fine. So with our tomatoes here, because they are a lower acid and a lower moisture content, we can pose a food safety risk if not handling it correctly. So we want to always keep our jars refrigerated, using clean utensils, and enjoying them in the recommended amount of time. We'll go further into that as we get in, but I definitely wanted to make sure, just with any other thing that we do in the kitchen, we're safe and we're healthy, so that way we can enjoy what we do. So with that out of the way, I'm gonna go wash my hands. I'm gonna secure my cutting board. I'll meet you there. Now that our cutting board is secure, the first thing that we're going to do is wash the tomatoes properly. Being that we're bringing them in from the garden, some of them are growing close down to the ground. There's a little bit of dirt, bugs, leaves, all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure we get them into the sink and get them nice and clean, using cold running water, giving it a little hand scrub just to make sure that everything comes off. Give them a rinse or two, depending upon how dirty they are. We recommend washing them even if you buy them at your farmer's market or at a grocery store. Just another layer of protection, keeping them safe and clean, ready for the next step in the project. Once those are clean, we're going to strain them off to make sure that we get most of the moisture off, kind of let them dry. You can pat them dry if you want, or you can shake them dry. And then we're going to move back to our cutting board. So we're going to take and grab our paring knife, and we're going to take the cores out of the top. This is the stem end where the tomato grows. We need to remove that. Once this dries down, the texture is going to change. It's going to be kind of a fruit roll-up texture, and that core is just going to get really hard. and difficult to eat. If you feel comfortable with it, take your paring knife blade in your hand, and I know normally not something we do, but this is a very controlled environment here. You're using the tip of your paring knife. You're gonna hold the tomato and you're gonna slowly create a cone out of the middle of the tomato. You'll see that removes the core itself, removes very, very little flesh, and wastes almost nothing of the tomato. Now, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, by all means, using a paring knife nice and sharp, you're going to just take as little off of the top stem end as possible. Cut that off, just throw it in your trash or your compost pile. As you're going through your tomatoes, again, at the store, you don't necessarily have this problem, but being that we grow these at home, you'll see that there's blemishes, that there's nicks and dings and spots in the tomatoes that need to be removed as well. We don't want any of those in this while we're going. So we're going to take our knife and remove them. Sometimes that means cutting the tomato almost completely in half. Sometimes you can kind of channel cut those out. Use your judgment, but we don't want any of the black, brown, blemished, bruised spots moving forward. For this recipe, we're gonna have probably about 12 tomatoes worth. Our tomatoes are a decent size. Feel free to tweak the recipe if you want to double, triple, quadruple it. We've got a ton more tomatoes to use, but for this recipe, this will fit into about a quart-sized jar. Once those tomatoes are cut and into our bowl, we're gonna give them a good salting. This is the real one chance we get to really season the tomatoes themselves, because once we pack them into oil, the oil will not dissolve salt. We need the moisture from the tomatoes to dissolve the salt. So we're gonna salt our tomatoes, probably about 1 to 2 tablespoons worth for this 12 pack batch. And we're gonna take our herbs. We've got dried thyme and oregano. I'm gonna toss those in as well. And this is the next important step for our food safety. We need to acidify our tomatoes just a little bit. USDA recommendations for packing at home or canning at home, especially tomato or low acid products, is that you need about a half a tablespoon to a full tablespoon of acid per jar. So we're gonna do 1 jar, we're gonna use about 1 tablespoon. We're gonna use balsamic vinegar as our acid. Acids can include any type of vinegar, as long as it's food grade. You can use citrus if you want, so limes or lemons. Not necessarily an orange. The acid level in an orange isn't high enough for this, but we're gonna use our balsamic vinegar because it makes sense with our tomatoes and herbs. Those flavors go together really well. It's also got about a 6% acidity, so that's going to help kill off any chance of having any foodborne illness or pathogens like botulism in our final product. Once that is together, we're going to add just a touch of oil, about a tablespoon or so of nice olive oil. Give them a really good toss. And then we're going to get them onto a parchment paper lined sheet tray with a resting rack. Now we've got a roasting pan here that has a nice built-in little rack. The purpose behind getting them off of the base is to let airflow happen underneath and on top. That's really key to this. Once you've got your tomatoes cut side up and not touching each other on your sheet tray, you're gonna go into your oven. Now, that oven needed to be preheated at 250 degrees. We're gonna go really nice and low and slow. We're gonna put them in top rack. We're gonna close up the door. From here, the time to get them to dry is going to be dependent on a couple of factors. First, how big your tomatoes are. Second, how good your oven really is. If you've got an older oven, it might take longer. If you've got a newer oven that's calibrated better, it might not take quite as long. And third is how much liquid those tomatoes have in them. We took roughly about 3 hours, give or take. We started checking every half hour. Again, it really depends upon the moisture level and your oven. And they're gonna start to look like this. You're gonna start to see the moisture drip away from them. They're gonna start to shrivel up around the edges. The color's gonna turn a little bit darker, kind of more like brick red, kind of tomato paste color. And you're gonna smell them. The house is gonna smell like a pizza place. It's fantastic right now in our house. All those herbs and the vinegar are starting to smell. The sugars in the tomatoes are caramelizing, and it's really, really delicious. So once we've gotten this desired texture, again, it's gonna have a little bit of squidge to it. It's gonna squeeze a little bit, not a whole lot of liquid's gonna come out of them like crushing a regular tomato. This is what we're looking for. They're gonna have a chew. Again, best way I can describe it is kind of like fruit roll-up texture. They're gonna have some resistance, but they're gonna be super, super, super intensely flavored. The acids in the tomato, the acid from the vinegar, the herbs are all gonna intensify. While that is going, we're gonna prep our jars We want to make sure that everything is clean as possible. In some of our other videos that we used jars for, like our pickled red onions and our strawberry jam, we want to do the same thing here. Using as hot of water as we can possibly stand and a good soap, we're going to give the jars a good clean. All over the place, lids included. Make sure that you're rinsing all of the soap residue off, making sure that you've gotten every nook and cranny so that way we don't have any concerns. Once those jars are cleaned, we'll dry them up and then we'll get them ready for our next step. As we're approaching the time for our tomatoes to be done, we're going to prepare our oil. So we're going to take our nice olive oil. We want olive oil in this case because at cold temperatures, olive oil will solidify in the refrigerator. This will help keep oxygen out of the tomatoes, causing mold. And it also has a little bit more flavor than just a neutral oil that's going to add to the complexity and the richness of these tomatoes. So we're going to get our oil in our pan. We're going to start to warm that up gently. We're going to slice up a couple of cloves of garlic. You can choose to use more if you want more intense. For this jar, we've got 2 nice big cloves. We're going to get some nice slices out of them. Got a couple of sprigs of fresh thyme out of our garden. We're going to drop those into the oil. As the oil warms, that's going to infuse the garlic. It's going to infuse the thyme directly into the oil, giving us a nice rich flavor. Super aromatic, another layer of smell and flavor. Bring it up to just below a simmer, and we're going to kick it off. That's infusing the oil. It's not going to burn or cook the garlic too far, and it's going to have that oil hot enough to enter the jar and infuse the tomatoes too. As those tomatoes are done, we're going to bring them out of the oven using a pair of tongs, and you're going to pack them directly into that clean jar. Once those are in the jar, then we're going to pour carefully the oil directly over the top into the jar itself. Now we want to fill the jar as far as we need to cover the tomatoes. So if you don't have the right size jar, if it's a little bit bigger than the batch size that you made, that's fine, as long as the tomatoes are completely submerged in the oil. Now, there's going to be a few pesky ones that are going to try to come up to the top. As long as you can get them covered with oil to start, if they bob up, they at least have a layer of oil to start with, and those are going to be the first ones you're going to eat. We recommend eating these within the first week or 2 of putting them into the refrigerator. After that, again, there is a lot of research done to show that you do run the risk of some foodborne illness increase. If you've done everything correctly to maintain food hygiene safety, there's less concern here. Plus, with the addition of the acid, you're going to be okay. However, we again want to hit on it and mention it just for the safety sake that we do understand that there is a risk, and it's one that we have taken many years of doing this in the kitchen, and so far everything has been great as long as you're following the guidelines and being smart and safe. We're going to let them cool to room temp, then we're going to get them into the fridge, making sure that we've got a lid on them to keep them from having anything come into them. They'll keep for about 1 to 2 weeks fresh in your refrigerator. Now, they don't last that long in our house because we eat them, much like many of our canned preserved things, we eat them pretty quickly. If you want to keep them longer, say, for instance, like what we've got a huge batch of tomatoes out in our garden that we want to preserve, the best way to keep them is in the freezer. You're going to pack them just the same way. You're going to pack them maybe into smaller jars so you can pull out smaller amounts as you need them. But once they're packed and cooled properly, you're going to put them in the freezer. That oil will encapsulate everything. It'll solidify like it normally does, but the freezer temperatures will inhibit bacterial growth or any other problem. And that's that. If you are joining us for the first time and haven't met Xander, who is not here right now, go ahead and check out his video that we have towards the front end of our YouTube channel. It says Meet Xander. Red Shoe Chefs is just that, chefs with an S. We've got multiple chefs. Xander Man, my son, and sous chef, can't wait to meet you and is looking forward to the next video. If you want to be first to get the next video, go ahead and like and subscribe, hit our bell notification. That way you can see Xander and his sister and his cousins in action as we go about doing all sorts of fun things in the kitchen. If there's something else you want to see, go ahead and pop into the comments, let us know. We look forward to meeting you there. Till the next one, we'll see you. Bye.